race and how it is acknowledged is going to be different than how you're used to. Race and the way people view race in Brazil was different than what I was used to. In Cuba, in India, it was all different. And so I was the one that had to really adjust my thinking to really understand how race is. You guys have no idea how pissed off I am right now. For two reasons. One, I bought a new microphone for this camera because the audio in here, I keep having to come to this, I keep having to come to this other room because it's not beside the main road and you guys can hear me a lot better, but the lighting here sucks and I wanted to sit in the other room and record in there. And so I was going to get the microphone so I could have better sound quality when I sit in the other room. And I accidentally threw it away. Like I bought the microphone and I left it in the bag. And that same day, that night, I was cleaning my house and I was like grabbing all the trash bags together. And I think I just mistakenly grabbed that one because I thought it was trash as well because it was still in the bag, right? And I just threw it away. And I realized that, you know, a day after I threw it away and I was like, well, it's long gone now. So, cause like the trash runs every day here. But yeah, I was pissed cause that's money and I was really trying to invest in my, you know, better quality things because you guys deserve better quality. And I just feel really bad. But I don't think I'll get a new camera anytime soon only because, I mean, that was a really pretty penny, and I mean the audio still works, you know, like the camera audio still works, and I'll just settle. And I'm also pissed off because I recorded this video and I realized I recorded the entire thing in slow motion and I had no clue that I did not turn off the slow motion effect on the camera. So I'm trying to like, so I'm going to the video to watch it and it's just, and I'm like, wait, what the hell? Like, I was pissed. So, I'm re-recording this video now, which I'm not really mad about. I just feel like, I think I have like my thoughts a bit more concise and clear and more in order, you know. So, we'll just, you know. But even through my pissy moments, I think it's important to come and show up for you guys because that's what gets me in a lot. Because that's what, you know, lifts my spirit. That gets me in a much better mood, and so I'm always ready to just show up for you guys regardless of how I'm feeling. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing today. So I'm going to be showing up for you guys and talking about racism in Egypt. Is racism, does it exist in Egypt? Is Egypt a racist country? And what inspired me to make this video was a few things. One, I remember seeing a video on YouTube a few years ago about someone talking about their experiencing racism in Egypt, and how Egypt was one of the racist countries that they've ever visited, and the people there just talk down to black people and they just undermined their entire existence. I want to respond to that and also talk about just my own experience being black in Egypt, because I've lived here for 2 years, so not to say so myself, but I do bring a lot more of an authentic and profound perspective when it comes to the societal composition and the way people think here. You know, a lot better than people who have just been here for like a week or so. So, not to be, you know, overly confident, but I just think it is important to also hear from the voices of people who have actually surrendered to the experience of living in Egypt and to any other country as well, because it's like you do bring a lot more of an authentic experience that people need to hear. And so, regarding racism and being black, for me, I'm never going to undermine anyone's own personal narrative, because your narrative is something that you own, and you have the right to share it how you recollect it, right? For me, I've always noticed that in different cultures, people acknowledge things that we don't acknowledge back at home. So for example, in Egypt, it's so common to acknowledge people's weight. People can acknowledge your weight and make a nickname out of it. You know what I mean? Like, so there's this thing here called kirsch, right? Kirsch is like your big belly. And people talk about that a lot. Like, they're like, look at my friend's kirsch. Or like, look at, you know, that person's kirsch. But that's not really offensive here. You know, talking about someone's weight is just not offensive. But back at home, that would be considered body shaming. Is this about to die? Oh, God. I'm going to have to move it to the other room. But, the same goes for race and people's skin complexion. You know how in other languages people make a nickname surrounding your skin color. You know, in Spanish people have like the nickname negrito. Negrito is not going to be used for someone who's fair skinned. You know what I mean? And that's, people give you that nickname because you're probably brown skin or darker skin, and so that's a nickname that people use just as a, you know, a cute, you know, way to address you. And I also think what you perceive as racism may differ from other people. You know what I mean? I think I'm never going to undermine the value of someone's narrative. If you feel like if someone was biased against you or had a prejudice towards you because of your skin color, that's probably valid, and you have the right to tell that experience how you see fit. But for me, I've never, in my 2 years of living in Egypt, have ever experienced racism. I think Egyptians are the most welcoming and embracing people, especially when it comes to people who are of darker skin complexion. You know, people have looked at me and were like, oh, we're the same, you know what I mean? And so there's also this one. Okay, so the camera has died, and I really apologize for the background noise if you guys can hear the traffic outside. That's why I bought the microphone for you guys, because I want to record in this room because it's a lot better, and you guys could probably hear like the call to prayer as well. But I want to start recording in this room. I'm going to consider maybe buying a new one, but it's just not on my radar. It's just not on my radar right now. But we'll see. But anyways, back to the story, if I can remember like where I left off. Egypt is no stranger to, you know, making nicknames about people based on their physical and apparent characteristics, you know. Like people have the words like asmarani, which is like, you know, someone who's who has brown skin. But for me, as a black person in Egypt, I've never felt like anyone has ever had a bias towards me because I was black. If anything, me being American holds a lot more weight, and people actually give me a lot more respect because one, you're an American who not only is a tourist here, but you actually chose to live here, and you've been here for 2 years. Like, that's an experience that people don't really hear about. It's like, why would you leave America to come live in a place like this? So people actually take value in that. But me being a black person, people do get confused as to why I am a American who is black, because this doesn't reflect the views of all Egyptians. Like, there are really there are Egyptians who are exposed to these types of things, and there are people who are not exposed to these things, right? There are people who understand that black Americans do exist. The societal and the racial makeup of America is so diverse, and people get that. But there are other people who don't. There are people who have this idea that Americans have this one look, and I don't fit that look, as you can probably see. And I try to be a really patient person, because I know, because having lived here, people don't have the same access as we do. I know people who only have small track phones, like, and they don't have the same access as we do. But when it comes to people feeling a bias or a prejudice towards others because of their skin color, that's not really a thing here, I don't think. If racism is a thing here, which I'm pretty sure it is to an extent, because racism is everywhere, but it does not look the same as racism does in America, or it's not talked about the same way as it is in America. People actually want to understand the race politics in America, because they're just so confused. Also, there are different communities in Egypt that are comprised of different people who have really darker skin, and people who appear more African, right? So there are groups of people who come from the Nubian community, from Aswan, and they are my skin complexion, they're darker than me. There are people from Sudan who live here as well. And so that's why most people, like, they assume I'm from one of those communities. But friends who are Sudanese, and I have friends who are Nubian, and I've even asked them too, like, how do you feel being a person who is darker skinned living in Egypt? And I've only ever had one friend tell me that he's experienced racism. Growing up in school, people would make fun of him because he was darker skinned. See, that's racism. That's people making fun of you. Obviously, like, that's something else. But the average Egyptian who's, you know, mature and educated, they're not going to be making fun of you because you're black. That's not really a thing here. That's not what people do. There's this common phrase in the Egyptian culture, in the language, that's called ehna wahid, right? And that literally means we are one, but it implies that we're all the same. And it's mostly used when people are telling you what their religion is. You know, it's predominantly a Muslim country, but there are Christians who live here. And whenever you tell someone that you're not Muslim, that you're Christian, it's always ehna wahid. And I've heard it a few times, you know, in the context of skin complexion, like ehna wahid, like we're all one, so it doesn't really matter. And so the thing about Egyptians is that with that one phrase, people really want you to feel like you're at home. People want you to feel like you are safe, that you are at home, that you are welcomed, and that you are one of them. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Egyptian culture, is that despite what your skin color is, what your religion is, what country you come from, people want you to feel like you are one of them. And I think Egyptians only really have animosity towards one group of people. I'm not going to go into that right now, but if you don't come from that community, I think you're you're fine. You know, but beyond that, I will say Egypt is a safe country for black tourists. It's a safe country for people who are African American, people who are black. It's safe for all of us. You know what I mean? And that's still not to undermine the experience of those who have felt like they've experienced racism, or they've experienced a prejudice towards them because of their skin color. But the overall, like, predominant experience for black people, it's not going to be you experiencing racism, you know? It also does depend on just how you perceive racism. You know, racism is also a perception that people have, and it differs depending on who you ask. You know, some things may be perceived as racism and some may not. And I think when you're traveling to different countries and you're trying to immerse yourself into different communities where there is a divergent groups of people with different skin colors, race and how it is acknowledged is going to be different than how you're used to. Race and the way people view race In Brazil was different than what I was used to. In Cuba, in India, it was all different. And so I was the one that had to really adjust my thinking to really understand how race is viewed through the eyes of the locals, because that also gives you insight and a more clear understanding as to whether you should be perceiving what you're hearing as racist, or just how the way people acknowledge skin tone in that country, because it is different. You know, acknowledging someone's skin tone in America, you know, without any racist intent, or even if it's coming from a place of kindness and curiosity, people will perceive that as racist. And you can't really have that same mentality when you're traveling abroad. To say that racism doesn't exist, you know, beyond the premise of the United States, it does exist, and it also exists in Africa. But you should also really be trying to adjust your way of thinking to understand the minds and the experience of the locals and how they perceive the racial composition of the country, of their own country. I think I'm going to leave it there. And so, to recap, is Egypt a racist country? I would say no, it is not a racist country. Are you safe? You are most likely going to be safe. Egyptians are welcoming people. You can come here and live your true, authentically black self, because people do every single day in Egypt. So I hope this video provided some insight into Egyptian society, and I hope you guys took value from this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.